Hello, my crafty friend, and happy Valentine's Day. Thank you so much for joining me here at my messy desk, not for my typical kind of video, which would be a junk journal flip through, but for kind of a show and tell what I'm working on next / craft with me session. So get yourself some coffee or tea or whatever it is you like to drink, and whatever it is you like to work on while listening to YouTube videos, because it'll be a chatty one. Anyway, so what I'm working on, we'll start with that since it's on the top of my pile here. For this coming Saturday, the journal I plan to release is called Pretty on Purpose, and it's made with just one of the prettiest vintage brooches I've ever seen. I found this one back in December at a local antique shop and I just loved it. And when I received this really pretty, like almost a vibrant pink meets a purple fabric from Tanya, whose amazing channel is called My Jewelry Addiction, I just knew that it's the fabric to go with the brooch that I'd been saving. So anyway, from there, I just started building the cover using fabrics from Kimberly and May and more from Tanya. And it just kind of put itself together and wound up looking so gorgeous. This little extra booklet that's under the tie is going to be kind of a sampler that I'll fill it with samples of vintage wallpaper, maybe washi tape strips, fabrics and things. It has fold outs. It's made of vintage ledger. Just kind of fun, I think. And then inside, you'll see why I call it Pretty on Purpose. It is just filled with all things pink and flowery and lacy. And those are the kinds of things that I think a lot of us get conditioned to pretend we don't like, or we think we stop liking them because we're told we shouldn't like them anymore once we hit a certain teenage age. And that's why I'm thinking I'll call this book Pretty on Purpose, because it's using things that are pretty, not ironically. You know, it might be pink, but it's not cutesy. Anyway, I'll set that aside. But yeah, I wanted to share that because the craft I plan on making today, the little clusters of cool, varied vintage papers with some pink tourmaline gemstones. There's a reason for those I'll share in a moment. But yeah, vintage papers, cool fabric snippets that I've set aside here. All of these that you see to the left of the camera are just leftover scraps from projects I've worked on. And so I thought, you know, today my plan was to make some little scrap bundles out of those using some book pages, and then maybe hold them together with some sewing pins and possibly some junk jewelry. And then I thought, you know, back in December, I made my 12 days of gifts to make video series, and some of you really seem to love them. Thank you to those who did. And I did have some comments requesting more videos like that, so I figured, why not? Why not do make today the day that I do the next crafty video? And then I thought maybe that's something I'll try to do every holiday, like a Valentine's video that can have a, look at how pretty these are. These are going to look stunning, cascading down a page with maybe like a woodland scene or a tree or maybe some fairies. I'm going to set these aside and save them for a future project. Aren't these earrings all super cool though? I love the fake opal, plasticky opal. These almost like classic looking, you'd expect a princess to wear, sort of pearl drops. These retro enamel with big clunky faux diamonds. Yeah, these are going to decorate the little fabric and paper clusters I plan to make. Might as well take these off their card backs. But yeah, so I was gonna do this craft today anyway, thinking I'll add one to the journal I just showed you that I'm working on for this coming Saturday. And then I thought, you know, how long does it actually take to paint my fingernails and set up the video camera and do the same exact craft but in a more curated way whilst speaking? And I'm not gonna lie, it is a lot more worky to do this on camera than off, especially because I'm kind of a, what's the word for it? Multitasker might be too kind of a word for it. Scatterbrained might be not kind enough of a word for it. But I'm not the type of person who typically starts a task and finishes it all in one go. I like to start one thing, move over and do something else, maybe juggle 3 or 4 things at once. So for example, wash the dishes while watching a YouTube video, while also making a book cover, and while the layers of paint or of glue are drying on the book, that's when it's time to go, you know, pre-soak the dishes. And once those are pre-soaking, time to glue the next layer onto the book. You know what I mean? I don't like to sit and make one start to finish thing. I get bored, I guess. Is that sort of like, anyway. So yeah, I think that's why I prefer to craft not on camera. And it's easy enough to do a flip through video on camera because that's not necessarily, you know, task oriented. That's something that's already been completed that's now being shared. So yeah, the gem of the day is tourmaline. And what I'm doing here is just cutting out these little watermelon tourmaline stickers that I found right before I started filming this video. There were a couple of funny little stories that I wanted to share in today's Valentine's Day surprise craft with me video. One of them has to do with tourmaline, like the stunning pink tourmaline ring that I found that I'm wearing here. That's my Valentine's Day gift from Kenley. But there's a long story to how that came to be. Anyway, right before I started filming this video, I found these tourmaline stickers. They were sitting amidst a pile of scrap papers that I was pulling out to make into these little bundles. And I thought, yay, that's perfect. That's exactly what this journal needs. These are actually part of a printable kit that I have in my shop. It's super, super cheap. It was one of the first printable kits I put together. It's just a set of crystal themed stationery paper. And it's literally just A4 writing paper that has some really cool graphic crystals kind of overlaid on it. And to go with it, I made kind of a sheet of stickers that you can print on sticky paper and then fussy cut just like I'm doing now. They don't call it fussy cut for nothing. It's a fussy little thing to do. And I hope you're not looking too closely at my nails as I do this. But anyway, so tourmaline is our gemstone of the day. And the reason is I acquired this stunning tourmaline in silver ring. And it was just such a cool, magical experience. So over the weekend, I was kind of feeling, it's been cold here, by the way. Like, it snowed today. I had to go out and do some shoveling earlier. If I were cutting these out for my shop, I would be doing a much more meticulous job, meaning like if I were selling these as a sticker pack. But because these are going to decorate scrap bundles, I'm just being a little sloppy. So anyway, over the weekend, I was kind of feeling the urge to thrift. Do you ever get that? You probably do if you're watching a video about scrap busting, junk journal, crafty things. I'm sure you thrift for some of your craft supplies. So I was kind of feeling that urge to go check out the thrift stores, see what's new. But at the same time, it was so cold, and I really don't like going out when it's too slippery outside. You know, when you have to do the whole boots, coat, gloves dance before you can even leave your front door. So yeah, I was kind of torn. Like, do I want to go do something, or would I rather just stay in? 1960, my dear friend May requested that we start labeling our vintage papers and our antique papers when we put them in books like this, or, you know, in junk journals in general. So I've decided to start paying more attention to it. Anyway, all I'm doing here is taking pages out of these antique books and kind of making them into a little stack. And then I'm going to fold them all, and these are going to become our hearts. Anyway, so yeah, what I was saying, over the weekend, kind of felt the urge to go thrifting. Also felt the urge to stay home and do nothing because it's cold. So some of you have heard me refer to my boyfriend as a magical man, or, you know, that he's just magical. How did we meet? It was magical. You know, how's our connection? It's magical. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it's true. Magical things seem to happen with him. So yeah, we were just sort of hanging out Saturday afternoon, and he asked me if I wanted to go check out the garage, which means literally the garage behind the house. And, you know, we were sort of outside going for a little walk, smoking a little homegrown. It's legal here, nothing wrong with it. So I kind of sneered at the idea, like, why would I want to go check out the garage? We're having a nice little walk. Let's just do what we're doing. But he told me that there might be some stuff in there that could go nicely in journals. And of course, he had my attention there. And so his dad used to have a shop in town that was a really cool little store. He called it Stuff and Things. And that's exactly what it was, just stuff and things. Some old, some new, some, you know, curated vintage collections, as well as quite a few new pieces made by local artists that were consigned there. So totally my kind of store. Sadly, he closed it very shortly after my boyfriend and I got together. But it was one of those places I always found something to buy when I went in there. And he also took some of my things on consignment, and it usually turned out to be a trade. I'd wind up wanting to buy something instead of getting the money for it. So anyway, my boyfriend tells me that he, you know, has a bunch of his old merchandise and stuff stored in the garage, and it's just organized. It's there until he sells it. But that, you know, it would be cool for us to go through it first and maybe set aside anything that could be useful in a journal or anything that I might want. And holy moly, when we went in, it felt like Narnia, you know, like I walked in, turned on the light, and the place was organized into a book section and a jewelry section and kitchenware section. It was like all this time I didn't know that there was a thrift store in my own backyard, literally, because I've never gone in there. So yeah, it was really exciting. And I wound up finding, I think, I should have had them all stacked here next to the camera so I could do a little show and tell, but I didn't think of it until right now. And it's too late and I don't feel like going over to get it. But anyway, I wound up finding at least 3 old art history textbooks. And my regular viewers know those are among my favorite things to make into junk journals. Just simply because they are vibrantly illustrated. You can find great pages for backgrounds as well as pages for, you know, decoration in your books and main spreads. And it's cheaper to buy and disassemble an entire secondhand art history textbook than it is to print, you know, as many sheets of paper using your printer. So that's why I love, you know, thrifted books. Okay, this one I picked up off the shelf just simply because it's called The Star Rover, and I love the clouds on the cover. I didn't know anything about the book. I don't know when it was bound. It's clearly been taken apart and glued back together. So I thought this is going to become the coolest fodder for word collages because the Star Rover just sounds like the ultimate sci-fi, fantasy, spiritual, mental exploration, you know, journey into the beyond kind of words to read on a piece of paper. Like the Star Rover, what is that? A soul on a journey from planet to planet, you know, an interstellar traveler. So anyway, I Googled the book, and I'm going to set that one aside because I would like to read it before I start ripping pages out of it, because it looks like it might actually be an interesting read. Google says, this is super cool, English to Russian dictionary. I'm gonna go ahead and use some pages from this in our little clusters too, because I think they'll be super pretty. But anyway, yeah, Google says it's about an inmate serving a death row sentence, or not serving a death row sentence, waiting on death row for his execution date, who starts to vividly recall his past lives. So yeah, the title Star Rover, it really is about a soul journey. When I was in high school, in grade 11 to be specific, or the 11th grade, or whatever you call it in the States or where you're watching from. When I was in grade 11, as we call it here in Canada, I had an assignment once in English class to write a short story. It was a fairly open-ended, broad assignment that we were given. I think we were told, write, boy, I don't remember the letter count or the word count. I just remember it had to be 5 pages typed. And so, yeah, we had to write these 5-page stories, short stories. They had to be fictional, and they had to have, you know, a beginning, a middle, an end, a protagonist. You know, you remember what English class was like in grade 11, right? You're given these creative writing assignments, and there's a certain checklist of things they must have. So anyway, I came up with an idea that I was going to write a story about a protester at a protest, protesting against factory farms, because I was a very, very, very outspoken, passionate vegan activist in my high school years. I'm still a very passionate vegan, for the record. I just don't protest as much as I did back then. Back then I was, you wouldn't have liked me back then, probably. It was all I could talk. I was very obsessed with it. You know what? And with good reason. I was so shocked and horrified to discover how badly animals are treated on this planet that I felt like everybody had lied to me my whole life and conspired to keep the brutality of the meat industry and the dairy and the egg industries from me, and that, you know, if people don't know about this, they should know about it, because if they knew about it, they wouldn't be eating it anymore. Like, my God, I kind of thought a lot of people were like me and would find out about what happens behind the scenes of those places and say, well, I can just as easily live without it, so that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? That was back in the year 2000 that I was in, no, 2001 that I was in grade 11. 99 was the year I went vegan. And the world has changed a lot in some ways for the better since then. As far as vegan options are concerned, and as far as like I found myself a whole vegan boyfriend who I love. That's pretty awesome. That's something I might not have thought possible back in grade 11. Anyway, so the protagonist of my story, you know what? Back in the day, I would have gotten so mad at myself for having this kind of a off rip when I folded it, but I've discovered when it comes to scrap bundles and ephemera for journals, the messier the better. It actually kind of makes it look good if they're not all perfect. Okay, I love finding old music paper. So this one is one of the older ones in our bundle, 1909, if anyone is keeping track of the dates on these. So when I take apart these old books, here's something I should have pointed out the first time. And of course I found one that's harder to do it with. See how there are like little tufts at the back here? Oh, that makes it easier. See how there's like these little bunches of pages gathered there? I like to try to find the center of a bunch of those pages. Oh, you know what? This is one of the harder books. Yeah, this one's different anyway. I think it's staple bound, not string bound. Yeah, we're not going to use this as a demonstration. I'm just going to tear these ones out messy. Okay, so I was in the middle of saying the protagonist for my short story was protesting at a rally against factory farms, and it got violent on the side of the police, not the protesters. They were peaceful, but they were disrupting business or whatever. I don't remember the details of the story. But anyway, the main character in my short story gets knocked down and starts to lose consciousness and then gets trampled in a stampede of people who are trying to leave. And in his last moments of consciousness, as he's dying, he starts having flashbacks, but instead of just having his life flash before his eyes, he has his past lives flash before his eyes. And what's funny is I remember this so vividly. It was one of the few assignments I had in high school that I actually really worked hard on and tried to do as a I'll show them kind of an assignment. And because I remember telling my mom the idea, and I don't know how articulate or inarticulate I was back then, but I remember she was quite dubious. So she didn't think it could be done or that I could do it. She said something like, that'll be too confusing. How are people supposed to understand what's happening? Are the characters' names different in these past life flashbacks? How will people know it's still the main character? Anyway, but I did it. His first flashback was to the Deep South, and he was a slave owner. And he came out of that flashback really shaken and very ashamed, wondering what had just happened, why he had just witnessed an event from the perspective of somebody so historically evil. And then he gets kind of kicked by another person who's running away, and that knocks him out into his next flashback. And then his next flashback, he's a slave in a very similar location, experiencing the abuse that in his previous flashback he had seen himself inflicting on one. And then he wakes up, and then in the next lifetime he's a hunter, and then in the lifetime after that he's a deer who's shot, and then in the next lifetime he's a factory farmer, and then in the most recent lifetime he's a battery caged hen. And so it's kind of, you know, not, I didn't know anything about spirituality back then. You know, I went to a Catholic high school. I was raised in a Catholic family. And so I wasn't yet familiar with the concept of the transmigration of the soul, which is sort of a Hindu, Buddhist, Eastern philosophy that once the soul progresses in its journey past, say, a form like an amoeba, a single-celled organism, once a soul, you know, kind of graduates from amoeba into fish, or from, you know, dog into, say, human, that there's no backsies. Like once we reach human, the next step is enlightenment. So I didn't know that when I was in high school. So yeah, if any of you are thinking sloppy spiritual mathematics there, I didn't know any better. But anyway, that was my little story. I'm going to fold this one a little differently. Ooh, that works out, because then we get the treble clef on the front. I should have done that with all of these. Now, how did I do that? Like this. Oh yeah, that's fun. Anyway, that was my favorite short story. I got 100% on the assignment. And then the teacher crossed that off and gave me 99.9% because she said there's always room for improvement. She embarrassed me. She made me read the story to the entire class. One boy cried. Interestingly, it was the boy who was a hunter. And it kind of gave me some compassion because I, you know, avoided him in high school, being the only vegan in my school, one of 2 vegetarians and the only vegan. So yeah, it was interesting, and it gave me a new sort of compassion for him too, because that's when I realized, well, he was born to a father who does that, and if that's what he takes his son to do, you know, I can't really blame him. But at the same time, I did, because I also thought, well, I've been cooking my own food since I was 12 when I went vegetarian, so there's no excuse. I buy groceries with my babysitting money to be allowed to go vegan. Anyway, I wasn't planning to talk about any of that today. Maybe there was a reason for it. The only reason I bring it up is that the Star Rover, in which this man on death row starts having flashbacks to his past lives, it just brought back all my memories about that high school short story that I wrote. And it made me wonder, how did he, the author, how did Jack London, how did he do it? You know, how did he paint that picture and navigate those changing eras and lifetimes and names and probably genders of character? I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at these and start building my little clusters. So I'm thinking each one, I'll do one biggish sort of one like this that has these papers. I'm thinking kind of layer them like book pages. Pardon the background noise. The kitty cat Domino does not like being ignored, and so he's smashing the kitchen cupboards over there very loudly, if I might add. That looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm going to leave that for the very top. But yeah, so I'm curious to see if Star Rover is as similar to the little short story I wrote as it sounds like it might be, because it sure sounds similar. And then I'm thinking of piercing a hole through it like this and kind of binding it with an earring. Let's see. I'm gonna put it, sorry to do this part off camera, but I just kind of wanted to line up that earring with a crack in this table. And that worked. And then I've got some tools here to bend the stem back, which I'm going to do just like so. I'm going to kind of curl the bottom in only so that it doesn't risk poking anybody. But there we go. That's my idea for the little scrap cluster booklet using all these different varying vintage book pages. Now, I want to tuck in. Maybe I'm going to actually use these as stickers on this one anyway. Yeah, I'm going to put it as a sticker. Where do I want it? Oh no, this is the other reason I don't usually craft on camera, is that it takes me a few tries before I decide on where I'd like to put an ephemera piece. I don't want it competing with, that's kind of cool though, isn't it? Yeah. Decision made. Yeah, it takes me a few tries before I decide on where I'm going to put something most times. Anyway, we got it. So the next thing I want to do is, on top of this little bundle of papers, I'd like to build a little collection. Here we've got Saraswati, a Sri Lankan train ticket, pretty little fabric strip here. It's not quite long enough. I'm thinking maybe something to tie around the whole little thing, and then I'll dangle a charm from. But yeah, this is just a little bit too short. I only brought scrappy scraps over. I didn't bring, oh, here we go. Here's something longer. That little opal will be kind of like a surprise hidden under this beautiful bow I plan to tie. There, that's sure cute, isn't it? And then I'm going to use the Star and Moon paper clip. I've got a bunch of star jewelry, or sorry, heart jewelry off to the side here that I'd like to use in some of these too, just because it is kind of Valentine's Day. Kinda. It is Valentine's Day, and I can do a kind of Valentine's-y craft. But first, I want to make a little charm out of pink tourmaline. And oh, let's get to our story about my new ring. So yeah, my wonderful boyfriend, on a day when I was kind of undecided as to whether I wanted to go thrifting or to stay home, surprised me with the manifestation of both. We went thrifting in the garage, and I found all kinds of cool old stuff, like old art history textbooks, as I mentioned, a book that's called Business Letters, Standard Business Letters, that gives examples of how your secretary can take your words and turn them into the best possible letters for various scenarios. And so that one's going to be fun to use in journals with all kinds of different. So by the way, here is a natural watermelon tourmaline gemstone that I'm going to be adding to this little bundle. Watermelon tourmaline is when a tourmaline crystal forms and the inclusions that cause the pink coloring and the inclusions that cause the green coloring are simultaneously present on the same crystal. So they're pretty cool. And of course, they're called watermelon tourmaline after the fruit that they resemble. And I have always just adored tourmaline because it radiates such a high frequency, heart chakra fueled love energy. So anyway, I just went to town on those vintage and antique books, some of them dating back to the 1800s. I had a huge pile set aside for his dad to evaluate. But meanwhile, he had discovered treasure elsewhere in the garage stash. I'm going to set this right. Ooh, actually, let's find a heart to attach that pink tourmaline to. Here's my heart jewelry. And I've got some beautiful turquoise paper from my friend May here, so I don't need to empty this out onto the stuff I'm already doing. Here we go. Quickly put one of these on. So, I was going to town on the books, and meanwhile, my boyfriend discovered jewelry in another part of the stash. And so he called over to me to come see it, and I was so distracted by the books that I didn't feel like leaving them. So I asked him, can you just set aside anything that you think I'd like, to use in journals? And so he did, and then turned out to be some really adorable little pins with birds on them that I will show you when I use them in a journal at some point in some videos someday. I don't have them here right now. But anyway, so at the end of our little garage thrift find session, I spotted some rings near the entrance. And if you're one of my regular viewers, you already know I like to give a ring as a gift with purchase every time I sell a junk journal. So I always like to kind of stop and look at rings and see if they fit a theme that I'm working on. Wouldn't that be cute? Like one real watermelon tourmaline among a cluster of fake little glass things. Oh, that would be cute. Too bad I already closed the loop, so I'll have to put it somewhere else. Okay. So anyway, yeah, as we were leaving the garage, I spotted some rings and thought I might as well try them on, and if any of them fit, I'll add them to our pile. And none of them fit, but one of them had, which was this one here, had all kinds of like Band-Aid tape wrapped around and around all the way to about here. So it would have fit, it fit my pinky. But I figured if I did a little bit of archaeological excavation on the tape there, I could uncover the actual size of the ring. And sure enough, when I scraped away all of that stuff and cut it away with like manicure scissors, it turned out to be a ring that perfectly fits my middle finger. And also, it's stamped sterling silver inside and Mexico. And I just had a funny feeling that even though it was such a big, gaudy looking stone, when you're into crystal energy, you get feelings about them when there's a gem that's talking to you. I could just feel that this was something worth wearing, worth saving. Yeah, so anyway, when I took it inside and started playing with it, I noticed that in this lighting, it's a vibrant, almost Barbie doll pink kind of a color. But in artificial light, it turns kind of a peachy, like a peachy rose gold sort of a color. And that just so happens to be the property of pink tourmaline. So as I did some more research about the hallmarks in this, I noticed that one of the things stamped inside it is the word Taxco. So I Googled that and found like a gold mine of interesting information about the beautiful historic city of Taxco, Mexico, which is absolutely stunning. If you've never heard of it before, as I had never heard of it before yesterday, look it up because it's got some stunning, stunning scenery and old Spanish colonial architecture. It's just a breathtaking place to see in the photos. Look at that. That's how I'm gonna hold this little cluster together. But anyway, among the Googling, I found a ring almost identical to this one with the same exact markings of Mexico 925 Tax Co. The only difference was that it was kind of rectangular shaped instead of oval. And it was labeled as Pink Tourmaline. So I thought, hey, there we go. My gem sleuthing skills are on point. I think I correctly identified the mystery honker of a stone here. Isn't it big and beautiful? Is that something that you say to describe a big thing other than a nose? I don't know. It felt weird as I said it, but there we go. That's what you get if I try to talk while I craft. I think I'm gonna make just one more little cluster and then call it a day here. But yeah, this one I'm going to add to the journal that I'm working on for next week, Pretty on Purpose, that I showed you. This one here, I'm going to add, let's see, I do have one more little watermelon tourmaline here. How special is that? Just barely, but there's a little bit of pink and a little bit of green in the same stone there, kind of like a, maybe we'll go with this one instead. Yeah, there we go. That's a more vibrant. So this little cluster of vintage papers, I'm going to do a surprise Valentine's Day giveaway and also include this pink tourmaline, but I will make it into a charm like I did with the last one. I'll make it with a loop though, so that you can wear it as a pendant if you want to. The energetic properties of pink tourmaline are manifesting love, of course, healing the heart from past pains and heartbreaks, becoming an embodiment and a beacon of love. So when other people need someone to turn to get maybe some empathy, some compassion, wearing pink tourmaline helps you be that shoulder that they're looking for. And yeah, so after finding this and discovering that it is in fact pink tourmaline, I said to my boyfriend, that's my Valentine's Day gift from you. Like, we'll find out, price everything out from his dad, and that takes all the work out of it for him. He knows exactly what I'm getting. And it was like the best thrift day ever, and I didn't even have to leave home. So that was my little manifestation Valentine's miracle. Anyway, for this giveaway, that will also include, you know, a fun little selection of stuff from my table here. I'm going to do it just like I did the Christmas giveaway, which means draw names. And all you have to do to enter that giveaway is leave a comment on this video, and automatically you are entered into the draw to win this little heart earring scrap bundle plus a watermelon tourmaline charm. I'll use one of those watermelon tourmaline stickers on this one too. In fact, I'll give a couple of these with this one here. Yeah, just leave a comment and I will write all the names down of those who comment, and then I will draw a name when I do Saturday's junk journal flip through video at the end of the video. So you'll have to stay tuned till the end for that, or just read the description box. But for now, I hope you had some fun working on some little book clusters. I may have created more scraps today than I actually used, but I will have some fun and make things with these. I'm also going to play with these cards that had the earrings on them. These can make some fun junk journal mini tags. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me today. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have such a fabulous time celebrating love. And later today, I will be publishing a really, really exciting video that I filmed a while back, sharing the latest swap journal that my beautiful friend May from Saudi Arabia has made for me. So yeah, today is a first, probably the only time I'll ever do this on my channel, but publish 2 videos in one day. So I hope nobody gets annoyed that, oh no, how am I going to keep up if you're going to be, you know, doing this? No, most weeks I'll do 1 a week. But today is special, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's inspired you to get crafty, to play with your papers and your fabrics and your old jewelry pieces. And you never know when you're going to find treasure like this beauty here. Anyway, because the stone of Pink Tourmaline is a heart chakra gem, because it so perfectly encapsulates the essence of what the Anahata chakra, or the heart center, is, which is embodying love, sharing love with others, feeling loved, and also feeling loving. I felt like when the universe gives me a pink tourmaline like this, I just want to send out pink tourmalines all the way out there. So anybody who buys anything physical from my Etsy shop for the next week, whether it be, you know, a journal or a scrap bundle, maybe I'll list a few of these. Whatever you choose to purchase, I will include a custom-made little love charm with a pink tourmaline on it if you mention this video. Actually, no, forget that. You don't even have to mention. For the next week is how long I'll be doing this. So yeah, I'll include a pink tourmaline with every purchase this week just to celebrate love. Thanks again for watching. Happy crafting, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.